Hi, this is Cheryl McQueen with Bello's Designs. Today we are going to make this card with a unique kind of design set up to it. What we are doing is we are going to take a piece of art card, create our piece, and then cut it into 4 unique pieces that will add a little interest to our card. So let's get started working on our project by looking at the supplies that I will be using today. We will start out by using a piece of multifarious smooth and supreme cardstock. I have cut this one to be about 5 inches by 5 inches. It doesn't have to be that specifically because we are going to cut these little parts out after we actually get the stamping done. So just as long as you've got at least a 5 by 5 inch size cardstock, you should be good to go. We will also be needing some cardstock that has a color to it for our frames, and those will then be cut to be 2 1/4 inches by 2 1/4 inches, and you'll need 4 pieces of this color cardstock. For your card base, you've actually got 2 options. I decided to do a white card base that offers a very clean, pure look, and for that I took a piece of white cardstock and just cut that to be 7 inches by 10 inches, and then I folded that in half. If you would like to do a little bit different option where you have an actual framing of the color around your piece, you can do that. You just need to cut your art card to be a little bit smaller than your 7 inches and your 10, which is then folded to be a 5 inch edge. So usually a 4 3/4 or a 4 1/2 inch by 6 1/4 inches or 6 inches. This actually will cut it down so that you've got a little bit of a border, and then you can place these designs on to your card like that. And like I said, this is if you prefer to have a little bit of color around the outside edge. We're going to go ahead and just like our example today with the white. We are also going to be using just a couple of stamps. We will use the Lavinia Twilight Lily, and this one is LAV 905. You can choose to use the bumblebees, which is what I have chosen to do. This is Bumble and Hum, and this is LAV 892. Or a very fun one to use in this project would also be the Flutterbee miniature, which is LAV 444. You can always choose another little small stamp to use if you would like to have, and you got something else on hand. We will want to have a sentiment stamp. I've chosen one that is just happy, and then you can choose different words. I've decided to do "You Make Me Happy," like I've got on my example card here. We do have a little bit of a background stamping. I have a wood block that has a script on it, but the Lavinia also has a background script card stamp, and it is LAV 372. So whatever you've got to create some nice words in the background works great. For our colors for creating the card base, I'm going to be using 3 of the Distress ink colors. I've chosen Salty Ocean, Cracked Pistachio, and Wilted Violet. This card can be done in any colors that you like. This is just what I've chosen to demonstrate today, but feel free to play around with the different colors that you have on hand. We will also be stamping our images, and I've decided today to try and use the Lavinia Elements, and this is the mermaid because I'm kind of going for this teal look on my stamps. I do not have a stamp that was this color that I liked, so I actually found an old Stampin' Up stamp pad that I had that was called Bermuda Bay. I don't even know if they still make this color or not, but I was trying to find something that matched my cardstock. So again, as I said, just use any of the inks that you've got on hand to make the colors be exactly how you want them to be. We will also be using the Lavinia masking sheet because what I want to do is I don't want my background stamps, the letters, to go over my flowers. So I'm going to use the Lavinia masking sheet. And what I will do with that is basically, and I'll show you as we go along, I'm just going to cut out the shape of the flowers in general, and so that we can mask that off. We will also be using a sprayer because we're going to be using what I call the smooshing technique to create our background. We're also going to want to have on hand a brush for blending, and then I have a very stiff brush right here that I use to actually create a little bit of an interest around the edge of each card. I would like to went ahead and decided that I wanted to do my card with dimensionals to kind of let them be popped up just a little bit from the surface. So you might want to have some dimensionals on hand that you can use if you'd like to use this method. I'm also going to be using a corner punch like this one to cut my corners, but if you don't have a corner punch, around a corner punch, you can always use a pair of scissors and just hand cut your rounded corners. Or if you've got a fancier corner punch, you can use that as well. We will also want to go ahead and have if you've got one, a stamping platform. I use this one with a sticky grid on it so I don't have to worry about magnets. I like using a stamping platform so that I don't have to worry about, if I need to restamp an image, about it being off. The stamping platform helps out a whole lot with that. Then an optional thing is to do some kind of little embellishment in the center. So I'm probably going to put a button, but this is, as I said, perfectly optional. You don't have to do that, but I just thought it kind of added a nice little punch to it. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started working on our project. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take our 5-inch piece of art card, the Lavinia Multifarious Smooth and Supreme, and we're going to create our background. And this technique, I don't know if this is an official name or not, but I've always heard it called the smooshing technique, and that's what I call it. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to take our inks and we're going to put them on the surface of our work table here and dip our card into it and make an interesting little pattern. So let's start out with our salty ocean. I'm just going to take some of that salty ocean, put it down on my work surface, and then spritz it with a little bit of water. It's kind of hard to see, but it's a light color, so it's there. And then I'm just going to take my card and start rubbing it around, dabbing it through the ink. And then you will see that it's starting to get just some smears of the ink and color onto my card. Go ahead and add a little bit more color down. Spritz it with water. And then continue the process of smooshing it around and wiggling it around to get a design onto my card. Now, if you have a little heat tool on hand, you can use that to kind of dry up your ink splotches on there so that you can move on pretty quickly, or you also can let them dry naturally if you like. It just slows down the process when you do that. Also, if you've got some places that are a little bit heavier with the wet, just grab a little piece of paper towel and you can dab some of that wet up. All right. So now I'm going to go ahead and take my paper towel and clean up my area here, and then move on to my cracked pistachio. Same process. Put the ink down on my surface, spritz it with water, and do the dab and smoosh technique. A blank corner there, so I'm going to go ahead and smoosh that corner around some, and then some down here at the bottom, so that I've just got it in various places over the surface of my card. And you can play with it, put on as little or as much as you would like of each of the colors, and just play with it until you get the look that you like. Maybe just a tiny bit more over on this side. Seems like I've got a lot of blue over there. All right, and then again, I'll just dry it up just a little bit with my heat tool. Wipe up the cracked pistachio and move on to our wilted violet. All right, and again, do the final little bit of drying there. All right, so now we've got our different colors smooshed on there. Now, one of the things that I like to do, because to me it kind of feels like it draws it all together and makes all the colors combine together really nicely, is I like to go ahead and just blend one of the colors, usually one of the lighter colors, across the surface to, like I said, just kind of give it a little bit of cohesiveness where they all blend together. So let's go ahead and start out with the cracked pistachio, and I could always go back in and add a little bit of the salty ocean if I decided that I wanted a little bit of blue in there as well. So what I'm basically just going to do is just take this and lightly blend it across the surface. It also, to me, seems to soften it just a little bit as it blends. And ties all those colors together really nicely. Alright, and I think I will go ahead and add just a little bit of the blue, just so we can get a nice mixture of the colors. right. So hopefully you can now see that we've got this nice, lovely little background there with all of our colors on it. So now what we're going to go ahead and do at this point is we're going to stamp the lily. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my stamping platform and my Mermaid Elements ink. So I'm going to place this down onto my stamping platform. I'm just going to put a little piece of paper down here to protect my grid from the part of the stamp that wants to be staying on completely on the cardstock. So now I'm going to take this piece of this Twilight Lily, and I'm just going to lay it at an angle, going across the center of my card here. And then I will take the Elements Mermaid, ink up the stamp, and we may, especially with this being a water-based ink instead of a pigment ink, we may have to stamp it twice. We'll have to just see. A nice thing about the Elements pad, the ink pads, is that they are pretty nice and juicy. Alright, so we're just going to stamp that down. Yeah, we'll go ahead and give that just another little coating. There we go. Now we've got that nice kind of a teal look color to it. I am going to go ahead and grab a baby wipe and clean off my stamp really quickly before we move on, because since this is a water-based ink, we might get it all over our hands and everything else. So I just prefer not to take the chance that I will smear the ink on someplace on my card that I don't want it to be. Alright, so now this is the part where we will be using the Lavinia masking sheets. So what I would do, and I have already cut mine out, so basically what I would do is I would take my stamp and do an image, and you can see I did get it on my hands after all, do an image onto the paper of the masking sheet. So just stamp that on there. And then what you do is you cut out a shape, just something similar. You actually don't want it to be exact, just kind of the shape of the stamp. So with that will then be masking over it so that when we come back and do our stamp with the script on it, then it won't go over the top of our flower image. So I'm going to take my piece of the masking sheet that I already cut out, just in the general shape of my flowers, and I'm just going to lay that over the top to mask out the area where I want to do my ink pad here, my script words. And again, I will take the Elements, the Mermaid, and just lightly coat that. Then I'm going to place it directly on top of it, and this is not going to be exactly the full 5 inches, but since I'm cutting this down, that's not going to matter. So now I'm just going to take that, stamp it down over the top. And then I can remove my masking sheet. And so now you see that my script is all around my flower, but not on top of it. Okay, so we are now to the point where we are going to go ahead and remove this from our stamping platform. And we're going to cut our pieces down to 2 inches by 2 inches. That's these pieces right here, the little center ones. So let me move my stamping platform out of the way. Now, there are 2 ways that you can do this. You can either just cut your 2 inches, and then when you put it on, mounted on here, then your design will be a little bit more separated. Or if you would like to have it so that it's just a little bit closer to matching up, you can actually cut 1/4 of an inch down the middle cross sections of your card. And then that will be just about the distance between, so that your elements will match up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this over to my cutting board. My cutter, and I'm just going to cut cut down this way, and then I'm going to go over 1/4 of an inch and cut off another little strip. I will show you what that looks like when I get done. Okay, so this is what I meant when I said that I was going to cut out a 1/4 inch strip. So basically what I did was I went and I cut this first, so that it looked something like this when I finished cutting. Then I went in and cut another 1/4 inch out from the very center part. So this part I will get rid of. And then when I actually lay these out onto their little cards, then the design will actually match up just a little bit more. So that's what I meant by if you would like to do it that way. Again, if you just want to cut it straight down and have your design off just a little bit, that's fine as well. So now I'm going to go ahead and finish cutting the rest of the cards and get these pieces down to be 2 inches by 2 inches. So we can then continue on and place them in our little sort of flower-like pattern that we're going to be using on the front of our card. So let me go finish cutting this out and we'll go from there. Okay, so hopefully now you can kind of see that basically what I did was I cut out a 1/4 inch strip right down the middle of the cross sections here, so that my design will still line up pretty close to looking like the original picture. So now what we're going to want to do is finish getting our little squares ready. So what we're going to do with those is we're going to cut our squares so that you've got a rounded edge and a rounded edge opposite of each other, and then a pointed edge and a pointed edge opposite of each other. So I've got my piece here. Let me move these out of the way for the moment. I've got my piece here that hasn't been cut yet with my corner piece, and I'm just going to take it, put one corner of that my square in. Here, I am a little bit better at doing it on this side. And I'm going to punch my rounded edge. Now, if you'd like to, and you don't have a corner stamp, just take something round, anything that you might have on hand, and lay it down on your corner, and just draw with your pencil around that little piece, and then you can take your scissors and cut it and still get a rounded edge. So now, as you can see, I've got a rounded edge here, pointy, pointy. So I want my other rounded edge to be opposite. Okay, so now I've got my 4 cards cut with the rounded edges and the pointy edges. So we need to go in now and do that with our stamped images. Now this one is a little bit tricky because you want it to look like a flower. So basically how you're going to do it is the pointy end is going to be towards the middle, like the center of your flower. So that means that I'm leaving this edge pointy and the outer corners pointy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this edge, punch it, and then do its opposite edge. So that's pointy is here, and then my rounded edges are actually at my little cross area. So now we're going to move on to this piece. So I'm going to do a rounded edge, go to the opposite corner, okay. Now I want my pointy edges here and here, so that means that I'm going to round here and here. And then lastly, I'm going to round on this edge and this edge. So now I've got that what kind of looks like a little bit of a flower look to it. Now we're going to want to go ahead and mount those, and so I actually am just going to use a little bit of running tape, but you can use a glue as well. And then we're just going to mount it in the exact same way that it is, so the round edge and the round edge, and the pointy edge and the pointy edge. So now you've got your flower look here, and one last thing that I want to do is I want to go ahead and put my bee stamp right here. So I'm going to get my stamping platform back out and just grab that corner piece, place that down, and then put my bee down where I want him to be. And again, I'm going to just take the mermaid ink up my bee. All right, and I think he looks pretty good. So I'll take him off. Actually, I will probably go ahead and keep my stamping platform out for right now, because we're going to go ahead and take our plain white cardstock, and I'm going to kind of set it up to see exactly how I want it to look. So I'm going to lay my cardstock down onto, let me see if I can zoom that out just a little bit so you can kind of see my whole card there. So I've got that down, and I'm just going to kind of put in general where I'm going to want these to lay. And basically I want just, maybe about 1/8 of an inch in between my little cross sections there. So that's about how I like it to be. So then I will take my You Make Me Happy. So I'll take the happy first and just position that where I'm going to want that to be. And then get my little You Make Me part. Make sure that's straight. And I can remove these pieces. Stick that down, and then I'm going to get the ink out for that particular stamp and ink it up. This one is also a very light color, so I may have to do 2 stampings to get it to be nice and sharp, but let's see how it goes. And this ink on these particular stamps actually kind of makes a little bubble look, and I kind of like that. Let me go ahead and give it just a hair more ink. All right. So now I've got that portion done. So I'm going to close up my ink so I don't stick my elbow down in it. We'll take this off of the stamping platform. Set the stamping platform aside. And I am going to get us ready to go ahead and put our pieces on the card. I'm going to go ahead and wipe my hands off so I don't smear it anywhere on our card. So you can choose at this point whether you want to just attach your little cards flat onto your card, or you can use your dimensionals, and that just pops them up just a little bit to give a little bit of interest. I actually like using the dimensionals. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my little package here of the dimensionals. And then I'm just going to pop them onto each one of them and line them up and lay them down on our project. Okay, so now we have got our pieces mounted onto our main card, and then the final part that we will do is, if you decide that you wanted to have a little button or some kind of little element design in the center, this is the point that we would put it in. So let me get my little button out. And then I'm just going to glue, and I'm going to go ahead and use my little Precision, my Sweet Petunia Precision glue gun. This thing is really wonderful because you can do just a itsy teeny weeny tiny little bit of glue. Not have to worry about getting glue all over everything. So it's great for your teeny tiny little spots. So I'm now going to take that and just center it. Into the middle of my card. All right. One step that I usually do before I put it all together, and I did not do that this time, is I do like to put just a little bit of interest around each of the little edges there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little bristly paintbrush here, and I'm just going to dab it around the edges of each card, just to give it just a little hint of interest there. It just kind of finishes out the edge a little bit, draws the eye to the center, gives it almost a kind of little distressed look. And like I said, I normally do this before I put it onto the card. And I was moving ahead too quickly and didn't do it. But that's okay. We can go ahead and add it now. And there we go. There's our little card. Let's see if I can zoom in just a little bit on that so you can see it a little closer. And like I said, you can do this with just about any color of any stamp and any stamps that you choose. Still use the same design, but come up with all kinds of different options with this. Thank you so much for watching my video tutorial today, and I hope that you will give this a try and try and experiment with the different colors and the different stamps. Be sure to check out more tutorials on the design team page at delbellosdesigns.com. Have a great day.